out the governments don't rule the world. Goldman Sachs rules the world. Goldman Sachs does not care about this rescue package, neither does the big funds. So actually, what I would actually tell people, I want to help people. People can make money from this. It isn't just traders.
Welcome back. It's InfoWars Nightly News. That was a short clip from the interview that aired a week and a half, 2 weeks ago with the gentleman we're about to be talking with. And when Alessio Rastani came out and said those things that I've said, Max Kaiser said, so many other economists we've talked to have basically said, the BBC reporter acted like, you know, he had said that the Pope was caught barbecuing small children on his front lawn or something. I mean, it was this feigned disbelief when it's well known the things he was talking about are pretty much accepted fact by anybody that can add 4 plus 4 together. But expanding on that, then we saw Forbes and all these other publications say, was it a hoax? Is it fake? He's not really a traitor. And so it really turned into the system panicking. Alessio Rastani has been a full-time trader for 6 years, focusing mostly on U.S. stock markets. He writes for the blog leadingtrader.com, highly visited site, a website dedicated to dismantling no BS information about trading. He currently lives and works in London, England. And we appreciate him joining us today because he caused quite a fracas by saying that the emperor was wearing no clothes. Why do you think they freaked out so bad and tried to imply it was a hoax, but later had to admit that it wasn't a hoax?
Hi, Alex. First of all, let me say thank you very much for having me on your show. It's a great honor. And I'm a big fan of Austin, Texas myself. Love to visit. But as to why I think it happened, for one thing, I think it was because it was too good to be true, maybe, for someone like someone who's a trader to come on TV and say those things. Because usually, you know, these financial pundits who come on TV, they don't say anything substantive. They just say the same old crap all the time, you know. So someone who actually said something which sounded true, seemed too good to be true for some of these guys, some of these, media folks. So maybe that was one reason. As for whether it was a conspiracy to discredit me, it's possible, but I don't know for sure.
Well, my point is I've seen other people on other prominent channels. Max Kaiser, for one, coming up later. He had his own BBC show a few years ago and basically said similar things because it's true, and there wasn't this big gasping and freaking out. I mean, I think a lot of it is because this stuff is so transparent now. It's so obvious that the emperor is wearing no clothes that when you pointed it out in a clear and concise way, it freaked him out. I mean, I've talked to people that are invited to Federal Reserve meetings to be let in, to the inside scoop if they're wealthy. And they say things are going to collapse. Here's how we profit. I know a lot of big stock traders. That is their big joke. So what you said was true. You said, hey, you can make a lot of money off this. And so you did let the cat out of the bag, or you let the general public know that they're on the menu for dinner. But let's now talk, unfettered, specifically from your years of trading, why you picked up this worldview and what some of the other traders around you say. I mean, let us into more of the secrets that seem to upset these people so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned secrets because I don't think they are secrets. I know there's a lot of people, in the general public who don't know about these things, about the fact that traders and even nowadays with technology, even ordinary people can make money when markets go down. But what I was talking about, I mean, you're right, Alex, because in a way, what I was talking about is what Goldman Sachs has been getting away with for years, which is basically dumping crap on people and then betting against the very same people, taking the opposite side of the action to what they themselves were selling. It happened in the dot-com crash, the year 2000. It happened in the Great Depression, 1930s. It happened in the housing bubble and the housing crash. So what I was saying to people is, look, these guys, these bankers, these idiots who got us into this mess in the first place, these guys are already making money by betting against you, by betting against everybody, the stock market. So now it's your turn. don't be a chump. I'm not suggesting people should go out there and gamble with their money. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, what I was trying to get out there is, there are ways that you too, and whether you're listening from home or anywhere, that you too can get on the same game that these guys have been doing for years. So I don't think it's a big secret, but some people obviously thought, well, this stuff is new.
Well, some have likened it to suicide bankers. Max Kaiser, tells that documented story in the 9/11 Commission of a guy who stayed at his desk, even though the building was on fire, to make trades betting against airlines, and he made $5 million, but he died. It's almost this target psychosis or narcosis, where they get so obsessed with the mission that they're wrecking society. It's not free market. It's government has allowed them to do this and allowed certain inside players. And we saw the Timberwolf emails connected to the big banks saying, look at my dumb idiot customers. Man, they're morons. I'm going to sell them this SH blank T. Ha, ha, ha. You have earthquakes in Japan or earthquakes in the U.S., and invariably Goldman Sachs and other brokers put out the Twitter, oh, my wallet fell. I mean, just a total disconnection from humanity. Give me your view on that, because that's really what you were hitting upon, was the predatory nature.
See, the thing is, I'll be honest with you, Alex. Look, when I'm looking to short the markets, in layman's terms, bet against the markets or make money downwards, I don't really think of it. I guess I should. Maybe I should think of it from a human standpoint, but I don't. For me, it's just a job. It's in the same way that the carpenter, makes buildings, houses, and in the same way that the plumber fixes pipes, fireman does his job. For me, betting against the markets and selling short when markets crash, it's just part of the game. I don't really think of it in those kind of terms. Whether people are, the fact is that companies are going bankrupt and people's jobs and pension is going down with it. I know it sounds terrible, but that's the truth. I don't think
you're just being honest about the current system. That's like with Bonnie and Clyde. They asked Clyde, why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money's at. Or you've got the parable of the scorpion and the frog, and the scorpion says, will you take me across the river? And the frog says, you're going to sting me and kill me. He said, no, I promise, I'll be friendly. Take me across and I'll be nice. So the frog says, nice frog, says, get on my back. And when they get over the other side, the scorpion stings him, and the frog's in pain, dying. He says, why'd you kill me? He said, I'm a scorpion. And so I guess in a way, we're the sheep here to be gang raped, and the vampires are here to feed. And then they even call it free market. So the grassroots calls for socialism, which only helps the bankers more, because now they can consolidate power and suck it off offshore. And it's kind of our bug-eyed, sheepish, mentally retarded lot to just sit here and be gang raped.
Right. I would say this, Alex. A lot of people do think that people who sell short, people who are betting against the markets, making money when the markets crash, that it's immoral. I personally do not believe that. I don't accept that view. Short sellers provide a good service to the markets. We can't do without them, basically because for two reasons. They provide liquidity in the markets. There's more activity, more liquidity, more money.
And it also brings balance from a rational exuberance. You must have missed what I was saying. I think you're a good guy. You're being honest. We could short big, evil, corrupt companies we don't like. I purely get it's just a tool, force of nature. I'm talking about Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, the insiders who are exempt from SEC rules, whose former officers sit in the Federal Reserve and SEC, who've gotten tens of trillions of banker bailout money to back up their derivative crap, because you were bringing up people selling garbage. I'm talking about listing garbage as AAA. That's criminal. And that's what I'm talking about. You were getting off into, on the show that I saw on BBC about Goldman Sachs, making money in downtimes, and they rule the world, and they were freaking out about that. So, that was just them freaking out about the obvious. I was just going further to the point of the rest of the story, because you started to allude to how they're selling people toxic assets.
That's right, yeah. Well, that's absolutely true, and I would agree with you 100%, because Goldman Sachs has been behind, as I mentioned, almost every major crash in history. And a good example is the dot-com crash. I myself, actually, Alex, was a victim of that crash. I was one of these donkeys in the year 2000 who bought these .com crap. Because, again, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just following the same strategy everyone else did, buy and hold stocks, and eventually you make money. What I didn't realize is, as I do realize now, is that Goldman Sachs, along with a whole bunch of other people, JP Morgan and everyone else, these guys had been overinflating these technology stocks, inflating this bubble through a number of processes, which you probably know about. Like one is called laddering, where basically, you promise your clients that you're going to give them a lower price of the stock, and eventually you say down the line you will buy it at a higher price. So almost kind of guaranteeing that the price of the stock's going to rise and rise, by this kind of manipulation. So yeah, Goldman Sachs been around. They've been behind every major crash in history, and again, dumping these crappy stocks onto unaware investors, and then betting against the very same people.
Sure, they invented the pump and dump, and if you look in third world countries, first world countries, they'll spend a decade getting their prime minister, their president, their finance minister in South America, in Asia, in Europe. I mean, it's always the same. This is a criminal crew. And I think them freaking out on you coming out and saying, hey, this is predatory, being honest about it. I mean, it was like saying, oh, my gosh, you mean fish swim in the sea, or, 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, it was the height of ridiculous. And for weeks, a week and a half, is he real? Is he real? When they could have just called you. We went and looked it up. They tried to say you were one of these yes men or something, when you were simply stating that the sky is blue, that birds have wings. I mean, it's just too amazing. Now, let's get more into this. Why specifically are you saying, because I agree with your analysis, but from your own research, why does Goldman Sachs rule the world? And then, what are some of the strategies or gambits that people can use, that the establishment's using, to profit from the engineered downturn? Because I know if the general public profits from it, that could actually screw up their actuaries and could actually help in the end if we just don't cookie cutter when they say buy and hold it while we slit your throat. If people actually learn what you and others have learned, then the magicians can't screw us.
Yeah, I wish that second point could be true. I'll come to that point in a second, Alex. As to the first one, as to why I said it, again, this is something I believe to be true. It's something, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't something that interests me that much. I don't think of it too much about what Goldman Sachs is up to. But as to why I said it, I mean, here's one good example. As you yourself know, Alex, as many people may know, a lot of ex-Goldman Sachs employees work in the government in the United States. I've already mentioned, a few days ago, I was in Ireland, and I mentioned on a show that Henry Paulson, this is a guy who was the former CEO of
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, he gives himself banker bailout money and then gives himself his own waivers. You're talking about the revolving door. Please continue.
That's right. I mean, this guy was the architect of the bailouts, and this guy then was funneling all this money to his, to his cronies like Robert Rubin and John Taines of Merrill Lynch, and they're basically making other guys in the city rich through bailout money. And the fact is, the relationship between the banks and the government is so blurred that it's not really clear who is the puppeteer and who is the puppet. But people can make up their own minds about that as to who rules the world. And I'm
well, it's like an inbred family. I mean, it's a revolving door, as you just said. So it isn't the government or the mega banks that run it. It's like two Siamese twins. I mean, it's like a breed.
That's right.
I mean, these people do even intermarry. And so, I mean, that's what's happening right here. How do we stop it?
Yeah. Well, sorry?
No, go ahead. Finish your point.
Going to your second point about how the public can get on the game, that's the problem. You see, the problem is whenever people get on any game, it's too late. You see, that's why it's called the herd effect. The herd, I know it's an ugly word to use, but that's the truth. By the time the masses get on the game, it's too late. That's because the reason is the masses rely on the wrong kind of information.
Yeah, they watch CNBC, but that's my point. If you watch Infowars.com, I'm not tooting my horn, you're going to be years ahead.